Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by Gerry Hamilton. Time for this week's edition of the Recruiting Breakdown. It's brought to you by our good friend Mark Saunders. We'll tell you more about Mark Saunders All-State here in just a little bit. But, Gerry, I'll let you go ahead and intro our guest since you are down on location in Florida this week.
I worked with this guy for 10 years, Craig Haubert, recruiting coordinator, ESPN, Under Armour All-America game. Also one of the funniest guys I've ever met in my life. But we're not here for the jokes, but he'll have something. But we're here to talk about the Texas 2026 recruiting class. Craig's seen a lot of these guys. Craig, we're going to get started with Derek Cooper because running backs at the top, on the top of the tip of the tongue for Texas fans with Trey Weiser going in the portal, seeing what's going to happen in the portal. But Derek Cooper coming in from Chaminade Madonna, I know you've seen him a lot. Kind of your thoughts on Derek Cooper?
Yeah, to be honest with you, he's one of my favorite prospects this entire class. I've seen him quite a bit at camps. I've done a few Chaminade Madonna games for ESPN high school football. And I mean, to me, one of the reasons why he's one of my favorite players in this class is because he competes. And I think he's well-rounded. And you guys know better because you're in this world. I was actually a little surprised when Weisner decided to go into portal because here's a guy who's been productive. And now with some of the other portal additions at running back, it almost seems like we're down here in Disney for the Under Armour game. It seems like, Derek Cooper's been fast-passed into having an opportunity to make an impact there for Texas. And I'll tell you what, it always starts for me, and me and Gerry talk about this, like about maximizing ability. One of the things I like about Derek Cooper is he competes. Derek Cooper played in the Under Armour game last year as a junior. We came through South Florida in March-ish, maybe February, early April, whatever. He came out to the camp, ran a 40, did all the testing, did all the drills. At that point of the process, he could have easily been like, I'm done. Some kids like, I'm not doing it anymore. Not only did he run a 40, he ran it like 3 times because he wanted to break I think he wanted to get close to 4.4, and he was like right under 4.5. And again, get out of that world where you think everybody is a 4.4. Everybody's not a 4.4. If you're Derek Cooper's size and you're running electric, laser time 4.5, you're flying. But he was like, I know I can do better. He ran it a few times. And if you watch it, I know this is a Texas podcast, so I don't mean to say something blasphemous, but if you watch him, Gerry, you run and you see his powerful stride. Yep. It gives you Adrian Peterson type fields with the way that he's built and the way that he runs. He's a little bit of an upright style, but powerful stride, good agility. He had, I guess it's a Drake song. I'm not very hip, but he used to also on his nameplate on the back of his thing, it said like, if you see this, it's too late.
It's too, yes.
And I love that type of confidence in the way that he plays. So I think from a rushing standpoint, and it was kind of odd at Chaminade Madonna, he wasn't overly productive as a junior. And I think people looked down. And again, it was a really talented
team. Played linebacker too.
Well, his head coach there at Chaminade Madonna told me at one point, like, he may be his best DB as well. That's the type of football player that he is. But this year, over 1,000 yards. And this is going to be a difference because the one thing about Weisner, not only was he your guys' leading rusher, but he was, I think, also top 4 or 5 in terms of receptions on the team. He was active in the passing game. One of the reasons why Derek Cooper really stood out for us in the camp circuit, too, there's only so much a running back can do in those non-padded situations, was his route running ability and his ball skills. You could easily split him out, and he could be very effective because he's got a natural feel as a receiver, not only in the hands, but in a route running. So I think he could be a true total weapon, not only as a runner, but keeping him in the field in personnel mismatches because you don't know how he's going to be utilized. So, and Weisner brought that. And while Weisner has proved it in the SEC and Cooper hasn't, I think from an ability standpoint, he can bring what Weisner brought and even push it up to another level.
No doubt. Craig, I like you mentioned in the Sark loves getting the running backs involved in the pass game. Did it with Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Brooks, Jaden Blue. As a matter of fact, just watched Bijan house one from 93 yards out on Monday Night Football. Craig, let's go to Diabell. And Texas is in a position at quarterback where they're not going to need him to play as a true freshman. He can probably sit and marinate for a little bit. What are your impressions, though, came from a really good American Heritage program, just your impressions of watching Diabell over the years?
Yeah, I think, one of the best things that maybe happened in the bigger picture is that Arch did struggle a little bit this year because you think 8 months ago, people like teams are going to tank for you hear some of the most asinine things sometimes,
Yeah.
So I still believe in Arch. I still think he's a phenomenal football player. I think him coming back is the best thing for Texas. I think it's the best thing for him. A quick aside, I think the way that the Manning family has handled him has been brilliant. You guys probably know as well. Even last year, people say, well, when Quinn was coming back, he's not going to – like, they've had a game plan. They've followed it. I think you'll see him get better. You didn't ask me about Arch, so I'll get on to you.
No, but people always want to hear about him.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
But with Dia, though, all that being said, the best thing that happened for Texas and Diabell is Arch coming back, because you're right. He will get, to kind of marinate. The biggest concern is last 2 years cut short with injuries. I don't think I think it's just kind of a bit freakish luck. But he has played against good competition in South Florida. He's been in good games. He does have a competitive bone to a body. He came to one of our camps. He was a little banged up. He didn't win the MVP. He was not happy about it. Not happy about it at all. So I think he's got a little bit of that competitive streak in him. As you guys all know, great family background, basketball background. His head coach there, Mike Smith, does a great job. Not only a good football coach, but also very good in terms of like training, works with NFL athletes, stuff like that. He had told me something that was interesting. Again, I'm not a basketball guy. I don't know, but I think the family early on invested in him, knew that football was his path, and didn't push him into basketball.
That's right.
Wanted him to do track, wanted him to do strength training. One of the things that Mike told me, his high school head coach, was that basketball has helped him in his pocket movement.
Yep.
Like knowing how to climb the pocket, move the pocket. That type of footwork that in basketball does translate to football. And that's why, and I always think that's why it's great. And Jerry, you and I talked about this, where it's good for high school athletes to play other sports.
Yes.
Because things can be extrapolated from one sport to another. And I think that pocket movement, those basketball genes between his dad and his brother, has kind of blended into that. So he's not a dual threat. He can move. He can run. He's a passer. He can buy second chance. He can navigate the pocket. He's got a smooth stroke. I think he needs to get healthy. And I think a year to develop is great. So time will tell. Quarterbacks become more and more tricky, as it seems, down the line. But I think the dominoes are kind of in place for him to sit, to grow, to learn, to get a little bit thicker, to get in that Texas program, to stay healthy for a year. I think a year off, staying healthy will be ideal for him to kind of – and again, between Steve Sarkisian, between Arch Manning, you're going to be around some great quarterback minds as well. So I think things are set up for this to be – they went in early on him. They got him. I think they've got themselves certainly a potential guy to pass the baton to when Arch moves on.
And by the way, I didn't mention this at the start. I'm in Orlando. Craig Haubert, obviously, here for the Under Armour All-America game, helps run the game. So that's why you see all the UA All-America game stuff behind us here. A guy that was going to play in the game, but a lot of times seniors, they just want to get ready and move on to the college level. Richard Wesley. We're going to talk about Tyler Atkinson next. Jeff will ask you about Tyler Atkinson. But Richard Wesley, I think, is one of the more slept-on players in this Texas class, who I think ESPN, you guys had ranked number 3 or 4 in the country. But Richard Wesley, I think, has a lot more upside and isn't talked about enough. He was on a dominant team as a senior. He played most of those games. He had 8.5 sacks. But obviously, you've seen Richard Wesley, and you had a pretty interesting comparison for him physically.
Yeah, I think part of it, too, was the reclass.
Yeah.
From 27 to 26, kind of
Yep.
cut short a little bit of that time to kind of get to know him. He's out west, so games on Friday nights, later nights. So, but he is one of these. So we came out to LA. He got to the camp. It was a little bit late, but he literally rolled onto the field, did a few old school stretches, and jumped right into one-on-ones and started kicking ass. Like he's that type of player. When you look at him, though, he does not look like a guy who reclassed ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
He is physically developed. And when you look at him in his body type and even in his face a little bit, he reminds me a lot of Robert Condici. But Robert Condici with even better, more ideal length.
Yeah.
Robert was a little bit more sawed off in terms of, I think when you look at Richard, he's got a little bit more of that length
he does.
want, where he could play on the edge. He can reduce inside, use that explosiveness as a 3 tech to kind of create mismatches. I think he is, I think there was a reason why Oregon pushed to try to get him on board so quick.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it didn't work out. It worked out for Texas. But you guys, is Justice Terry coming along?
Oh, yeah. Lance Jackson, too.
You put those guys together. I think Justice Terry is a run through a brick wall type of guy. But I think those two, you're starting to put young pieces together for a dominant defensive line. We were talking earlier just with some of the kids stuff like, about Miami and how Miami's a threat in the playoffs for one reason. They have a dominant freaking D-line.
Yes.
And if you can be dominant up front, you look at the great Alabama teams, you look at LSU's last national championship.
Clemson's.
That if you are dominant along the defensive line, all bets are off. And I think when you look at Terry, Lance, and then you put somebody like Richard Wesley, who I think can get into rotation, he reminds me a lot like Colin Simmons. Colin Simmons last year was never technically a starter, but he impacted that defense.
That's right.
Richard Wesley may never, ever be number one on the depth chart, but I guarantee you that they'll find ways and packages to get him in there. So, but I think in terms of getting those young plays, those are impact type D linemen.
Absolutely. Gerry, before we got a couple more guys to talk about with Craig, before we do that, let's go ahead and thank our sponsor for the recruiting breakdown. It's always brought to you by our friend Mark Saunders.
Yeah, when it comes to protecting all your stuff, I got the guy for you. He has all your insurance needs taken care of. That is Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders, who's also a Texas alum. He serves the Austin and Round Rock area and the entire state of Texas. That means he's the only insurance agent you'll need. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and even an ATV if you got one for hunting season. Call Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. My OTF guarantee to the community out there. With over 35 years of experience, you'll be in great hands, Jerry Rice hands, with Texas alum Mark Saunders. Again, give him a call today, 512-218-8571.
Now I know where to go to insure my yacht.
There you go. He needs his yacht insured. Boston Harbor.
Craig, let's stay on the Texas defense and go to Tyler Atkinson. This guy, it was a big recruiting win for Texas, going into Georgia's backyard and getting him inside. Jerry's got the numbers. I forget what his numbers are, but insanely productive.
Over 500 tackles, and it's a high school linebacker. Over 500 tackles. Ridiculous statistic.
Incredible. Craig, this guy, I look at Tyler Atkinson, he just screams heartbeat of your defense, kind of the quarterback of your defense as an inside linebacker.
Yeah, he was one of these guys who we were hesitant to move to 5-star because he going again to builds and length. He doesn't necessarily have that kind of length. He's a little bit of a tweener build, but you guys you cannot ignore the production at the class. It's not like he's doing this at like class A ball in some, like in Virginia or something.
Right.
Like this is the highest level of football in the state of Georgia that he's putting up those type of numbers. At some point, every once in a while, I call it the Jimmy Johnson rule. You just got to look at the football player and put away the measurables and stuff like that. And when you do what he's produced, I think you look at what Anthony Hill did. I think you recruiting, right? You try to restock, reload. I think, has Anthony Hill made a decision yet?
He's going to the league.
Yeah,
He's going to the league, 3 and out.
You maybe have your potential plug and play replacement. Anthony Hill came in and did it. And if you look at them, Anthony Hill was a little bit longer, but if you go back and look at our measurements from those guys at camps, they're really not that different. So I think they may potentially, as you went into, deep in SEC country and pulled out of the Southeast, a guy who could potentially come in and be their next Anthony Hill. And when you're recruiting, that's all you can ask is potentially replace, an all-conference caliber player with at least another all-conference caliber player.
So now we're going to stay at linebacker because Craig's sleeper in the Texas class was a late addition, flipped from Cal and Justin Wilcox after Justin Wilcox was let go, flipped to Texas. That's Rocky Cummings, Craig Haubert. We saw him in person on his OV. He was legit 6'4", 220, long arms, big frame. He's going to be a 245, 250-pound guy.
Yeah, out of Carlsbad High School, same high school as Julian Sayin, who's there at Ohio State. And I think he's a guy who we were even a little bit slow to come around. He came out to the LA camp, did a really nice job. Really big, long frame. I mean, he's got still physical upside. It'd be interesting to see how he even develops maybe into that kind of like that stand-up rush end type guy, but runs really well, moves really well. And he's one of those guys who in a camp setting was solid, but even like I know our linebacker coach, who's a great New York Giant, great Pepper Johnson. Pepper's like, I want to see this guy in pads.
Yeah.
Like this is probably not where he excels. Like he had a good day, but he's like, if we were in pads, I think I'd be seeing a different player right now. So when you go out there and you put on a performance where you catch the attention of a guy who's got a fistful of Super Bowl rings, you're doing a pretty good job. So I think that's, and really that's where the success of these classes are. When you're up there and you start to delineate between 1, 2, 3 of who's going to pluck the most 3-stars that are going to develop into 4-star over achiever types. And I think that Rocky Cummins is one of those guys that could be buried in a class like this. But 3 years from now, you're like, holy cow, this is a second team all SEC type player.
So I got to put to end on Jeff. I got to put Craig on the spot real quick, okay? And I didn't tell him I was going to ask this question, but that's what makes it fun. How many years of the Under Armour game is this year? 14?
No, I think it's 18. COVID. It's either 17 or 18.
17, 18. Who's the most talented guy you've seen come through this game? I always say Jadeveon Clowney, but boy, Myles Garrett's making a run for it these days. Is there somebody for you?
The most talented, Clowney's always, because he was so freakish.
Yes.
I remember Leonard Fournette being another one that really kind of just stands out, even as a running back. Those are tough. There's so many.
There's so many.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. That's a tough question, Jeff Howell, because you just go down the list of all the guys that were drafted in the first round, top picks in the NFL draft. I've always said, Craig, because I think we may have been at the same high school game. We're obviously here. I pound for pound, Clowney's one of the best athletes I've ever seen in high school football. It was just scary what he could have become. I think if he loved the game.
Yeah, but yes, yeah. And again, his NFL career never was what it was, but what he did in high school and what he did, I mean, that Michigan hit in that bowl game was still, he was just different. But then you think so I remember a guy like Dylan Stewart at South Carolina. He was down here 2 years ago. And I remember him playing around at tight end and going up and just catching the football. Think about a guy like Mekhi Lemon, who got kind of overshadowed by, I can't even remember the quarterback's name, who's bounced around like 6 schools. He was a 5-star. But Mekhi made one of the best receivers in his class, and just a straight competitor. So there's so many great players that kind of come through this game. I remember, I think you were there the year Jameis Winston connecting with Amari Cooper.
Yes.
There's two guys who had great careers.
We learned he was missing half a finger that week.
Yeah. So, there's so many. One of those, it would seem that so many names kind of flood through, but it's been neat to kind of see these guys kind of come down here and perform and go on to great things.
And look, Texas fans would be mad at us, Jeff, if I didn't ask about Easton Royal. Obviously, he's 2027 out of Brother Martin High School in New Orleans, one of the fastest players in the country. These All-Star games, by the way, for Texas fans that haven't followed, they used to be all senior games. Now it's a mix of senior, junior in these All-Star games, which I really love. I think it's great. But Easton Royal, one of the fastest players in America, is playing in the game this week, Texas commitment.
Yeah, I mean, speed kills. That's what he's a vertical threat, continually proved it. Again, I talked about Derek, kind of wanting to break that. I think it was at 4.5 and how fast that is. Well, Easton Royal has been legitimate laser time 4.4 and even kind of broken it. And, we're able, as many are now too, to be able to almost track on film how fast guys. He's a consistent plus 21 mile per hour type guy. He could probably hit more than that, but like consistently over 20. So you get that guy that could just take the top off a defense at any moment, that even if he doesn't get targeted, he's impacting a defense. And that's what he brings. And even early on, as he continues to develop as a receiver, again, go out, run a 9 route. It's like you can get him in the mix.
Craig, last thing I wanted to ask you was you at ESPN recruiting, this Texas class is 2026 class, number 3 class in the country behind USC and Oregon. When you look at this class on top of the classes Sark and company have stacked on it, just your thoughts on this class and then what Texas is building in terms of how they're recruiting right now.
Yeah, I think, I don't know off the top of my head in terms of what the industry is, but I know, listen, I don't know. I don't think off the top of my head there's any class that has more 5 stars. I think there's 4 or 5 that we have. And we have about I think mid-20s in terms of guys ranked at 5 stars. So they went out and impact defensive lineman, potential heir apparent at quarterback, potential plug and play at running back, potential plug and play replacement at linebacker. Is there another one that I'm missing? I think it's just those 4.
Yeah, those 4.
But again, so 4 5 stars in one class. And again, I know scale to our rankings is a lot. I don't think there's anybody else that has that many in our rankings. And again, a potential quarterback and impact D lineman and 2 plug and play guys for guys that you guys are losing. To me, that's a lot of value. and right away. And then again, there's guys a little bit deeper in the class in terms of, like we talked about, Rocky Cummins, the tight end, Charlie. I don't know.
Charlie Gillette. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
senior riser.
He's a guy that maybe potentially kind of turns in. There's quite a few good offensive linemen in this class. The guy we have,
John Turntine.
Turntine.
Oh, and then Nicholas Robertson. So you may play at center some this week.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of meat in that class too, but you can't look at the top of that class and not be impressed. And, you know, listen, it's a building block. You got to, again, we just talked about it. You want to win in the SEC, you better be good in the trenches. Stacking on top of Justice Terry, Wesley, getting a quarterback, and then getting offensive linemen. I mean, those are the building blocks if they want to, you know, get back into the playoffs.
Jerry, I'll let you get the last word with Craig. Any inside jokes, old Under Armour stories, whatever you got to wrap this up?
Well, the funniest one we can't tell on air, of course.
That's the case.
Yeah, that one's off limits, except in the rooms. But no, you know, not really. I mean, look, we all pick on Billy Tucker, and we all love Billy Tucker. Yeah. I mean, that's his best bud, but we all pick on Billy. He's over this whole thing. But no, it's always a lot of fun with Luganville and these guys, and I love my decade working with them, and it's always great to be back. And again, Craig's one of the funniest guys. You can catch all his work on the ESPN, FCS games. He did 2 Big 12 games this year. 3 Big 12 games this year. What AAC games in college football? Who else did you do in conference-wise?
A couple of MAC, couple of Americans. So, yeah, I'm around. I'm out there.
He's around. He's out there.
Work the clicker on game day.
Yeah, his yacht's in the Boston Harbor.
There you go. But, yeah, no, I appreciate you guys do a great job, and always appreciate you having me on, and it's kind of cool. I remember. So one thing is too, Jeff, you've been in this for a while as well. I kind of feel like one of the things that when all this started, when I got in it, my first class was 06, not to give my age away, is it was a lot more adversarial, this all, and it's kind of neat to see how it's kind of come around now where we all work in kind of in unison with each other. And obviously Jerry was part of the family, and we're still buddies, and guys like Chad Simmons and seeing all these guys, and Brand and Huffman and all that. And so how we all work together and become buddies and kind of share and help each other out. And I think that's kind of a neat thing to see how this industry has kind of grown, and those of us who have kind of made it now and hitting in decades.
Hey, trivia question for you, Jeff. One of the running backs in the first Under Armour game was from East Texas. Who would have been 18 years ago?
It would have been, so that would have been okay. It's either one of two guys. It was either Justin Johnson or Jeremy Calhoun.
Jeremy Calhoun, good memory, Jeff Howe, Van, Texas.
It's all there's all kinds of stuff that's just stored up here. You know,
that was a great one, Jeff. I didn't know if you were going to get that, and you're a trivia guy. That was a good job.
I can't remember. Literally can't remember. My wife just had a conversation. She needed me to do something in the morning. Can't remember that, but I remember guys like Jeremy Calhoun on the Under Armour roster. And, you know, you guys were talking about great players in this game. I mean, I think of guys like, you know, Dominic Easley. One year I was down there, had a dominant week.
Oh, gosh, good
Here's a story. So you want to hear a quick Dominic Easley story. So Dominic announced at the game, we had a hat ready for Dominic to go to Penn State. And literally an hour or two for the game, I forget how word got to us that this is the difference. Jerry used to say that recruiting battles were won around a ping pong table, because this is when, you know, you only had the one signing day in February. So guys were still working each other. Dominic Easley came down here, and I'm a New York guy. I'm from Long Island. He's from Staten Island. I knew some people who knew him, so he got on my radar early. Invited. He was such an ass kicker throughout that entire week that it got back to Urban Meyer and the other Florida guys talk. So literally hours before game time, hours before he was set to make his announcement, he was headed to Penn State, and all that flipped, and why he wound up putting on a Florida Gators hat. Oh,
by the way, now that leads down the path of what we have to end on is the greatest TV commitment of all time.
Oh, yeah. Landon Collins.
Landon Collins. You were on air for that, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was, but Dari Noka forever will be part of recruiting lore for being on the stage at that point.
That's still to this day the best live commitment of all time, just because of 100%. Landon's mom's reaction.
100%. Craig, thanks for the time as always. We really appreciate it. Jerry, before we get out of here, though, one more time, let everybody know about our good friend Mark Saunders.
Yeah, give Mark Saunders a call. Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders, also a Texas alum, serves the Austin and Round Rock area and the entire state of Texas. Anything from you need, your insurance needs, home, car, boat, motorcycle, RV, ATV, for hunting season, call Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. My On Texas Football guarantee, is you will find nobody better for all your insurance needs. That's because he has 35 years of experience and success in the industry.
Jerry, I know we got the transfer portal opening on Friday, but what's on the docket for you for Under Armour week the rest of this week?
Yeah, so we have player check-in tomorrow. We'll have recruiting coverage at On Texas Football on the channel and .com. Be it practice is the first practice under the lights just an hour after the conclusion of the Citrus Bowl, the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, Texas, Michigan. So I'll be going from the watch with us over to the first practice and the second practice the next morning. I'll probably be a little chilly for that one. We got a little weather coming into Orlando. It's not going to be 78 and sunny like it's been the last few days, but it's great competition. I love this game now, guys, because it's senior and junior. Craig knows I used to talk about that. You could sense that this game was going to move senior, junior, and I actually love to have the juniors in this game playing against some of the top seniors. I think it creates a different type of competition. I'm a big fan of it.
Hey, Craig, real quick, how has that changed the selection process, if at all? I know most of the guys, when they're rising sophomores going to their junior, most of the top guys are on the radar anyway, but how has that changed the selection process?
It maybe a little bit of a good way in terms, I think you got to be a little bit more patient, in terms of letting those guys develop and kind of get on your radar. But this roster this year is probably 70-30, 27-26. So it's moving pretty heavily to juniors. But I think that's the big thing. It's just because now, instead of having that 3 years to kind of get to know those guys, you only kind of got 2. Some guys come along a little bit later. So I actually think sometimes with the competition, and we're friendly with Eric Richards and the guys at the Navy game as well, I talk about things coming full circle, but we still have the best game, in my opinion, and still get the best players. But I think because of you want to slow things down. I think there was a point with these All-American games, things got too accelerated, and you had some cats here who probably shouldn't have been here, and some guys at home who developed a little later that should have been here. So I think with going with the juniors, you have to answer your question. I think in a good way, it's kind of slowed it down a little bit. And then you always got those guys who are like the Jameer Brown, stuff like that. It's like, 2 years ago, it was pretty no-brainer. They could probably play in a game like this.
100%. All right. Well, we'll have, as Jerry said, we'll have Under Armour content on the site and on the channel. We've got plenty of Citrus Bowl content, and obviously the transfer portal opening on Friday.
Oh boy,
we'll have that covered here on the channel. Jerry, thanks for the knowledge and expertise as always. Craig, thank you for hanging out for a little bit. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to our good friend Mark Saunders, Allstate, for sponsoring it. For Jerry, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, hook 'em.